I think this is one of the best certifications I've ever had when it comes to sports medicine. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I've had a few other certifications, but I kind of could relate more with this. I mean, pharmacology, the physiology, all those kind of things. So I could relate with it so much. And because as a doctor, one of the things you'll be doing, okay, is a lot about prescription, all right? Even as a nurse as well, people will come to you, oh, can I have this? Can I take that? Yeah, so it was a particular one I could relate with very, very well. So, and I really want us to really pay rapt attention, right? We'll be talking about quite a number of stuffs, and if you have any question, kindly please feel free to ask me. All right. So I've now so this discussion will be in two parts. All right. So obviously I can't talk about everything about doping. Okay, even in 3 or 4 sessions. I mean, I think I had a 6 months certification program by the IOC to actually learn about drug use in sports. Okay, but I mean, this is very, very important for every one of us here. Very important, and because people, the an average Nigerian athlete always wants to use medication and get the medication they like to ask doctors for. Anyone. I mean, maybe I should ask Ibuko and Janet that you guys have worked with a lot of female athletes. They would always ask for painkillers, diclofenac, ibuprofen. I remember some years back, and please pardon me, I love using practical examples, to just to buttress my point. So I remember some years back, I mean, just on my journey of wanting to educate people about sports science and sports medicine topics. So I had to go to this football academy somewhere in Ikeja, just to go tell the coach about the importance of sports science, sport medicine, about having the best of care for their players. So I arrived at their pitch. Mm, I arrived at their pitch after the game. All right, so the players had just finished the game, so they were going. And as I was speaking to the coach, I just heard somebody say, "Oh, doctor, I beg, I need medication." The person was not referring to me. So there was this guy, they were referring to doctor. So I was curious that, oh, so you guys had a doctor. Now, the guy they were calling a doctor was this uh young guy that works in a pharmacy or in a chemist that would usually come after each game or during the game to just sell medications to them. So it was there. He would bring his medications and the players would buy the medications from him at that point. And it was their own doctor. All right. And most of the medications this guy would usually sell to them were diclofenac, ibuprofen, paracetamol, Panadol. Okay. Now, again, that shows you just the extent to which our athletes, our footballers, they really abuse medications in sports. And some will argue that they use painkillers in particular because they need to recover before the next game. All right. So some of them don't understand that sometimes or oftentimes pain after sport could just be, I mean, basically delayed onset muscle soreness, isn't it? And with rest, with other forms of recovery, sleep, I mean, even just using ice bath, on those sore muscles can help. But for them, it was just about getting these analgesic, I mean, these painkillers as that will help them. All right. So, and another reason why we need to pay attention to this session is because aside from people using medications just because they want to improve their performance or recovery, as medics, we know that overdose of these medications can affect them in the future. All right. So imagine somebody takes, a large dose of diclofenac week in, week out. I mean, that person is putting his or her kidney uh, in jeopardy in the future. All right. So we also have the duty of care to also tell them that this thing is not good for their health. Right. So So maybe I should just ask, what do we think doping is? I mean, feel free to write in the chat box, or if you want to say something, please feel free to say something. Anyone? So what do you think doping is? Guys, it's a discussion. Don't let me
Well,
talking alone.
in my
All right.
yeah, in my opinion, doping is just a way of controlling controlling substance use, right, amongst athletes or sport professionals, right? It's just basically a way of controlling sports use to prevent them from taking stuff that can enhance performance and
Mm,
creating like a guideline, right? And also creating like a guideline to specific medication, specific ingredients that can be included in their stuffs, and also a way to a guideline for some stuff that are like a contraband but are needed for specific patients or specific athletes, so that's like a guideline to their use, right? Just to prevent them from being like, just to like cover them, because those substances are like, yeah, let's say contraband. So there's like a way to, so that's just what the whole idea of doping
mm.
is to, basically.
Oh, thanks so very much, Miracle. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. Yeah, it's all about, you know, policies that guides, the use of substances. So Kalako say use of substances to enhance physical or mental performance. Yeah, thank you so very much. Yeah, I mean, definitely that is what the is all about. I mean, using substances, and sometimes it's not just only about substances, it's also about methods as well, right? So I know that oftentimes when we talk about doping, we're like, okay, maybe the person has grabbed uh a particular medication, all right, but doping is, yes, there's the part of doping which is about using banned substances, but there's also another part of doping which is you, for example, if a banned substance is found in your custody, you've also committed a doping offense. Okay, so that is also doping, all right? Or for example, if you're in association with somebody that has been uh banned from sports, all right? So you should not, so the rule says you should not have any sporting association with anyone that has been found guilty, of doping, right? So no sport association. So if you're found with that person, engaging in any sporting association or any sporting activities rather, you're said to be committing, a doping violation as well. All right, good. So now I just want to talk about, just a brief history about doping. So doping is about largely improving, performance. Okay. So you can see this picture on the right, and again, this actually just depicts what doping is all about. Now, obviously, the guy with the rubber band will definitely win this 100-meter race. All right. So it's about people wanting to improve their performance. All right. Thank you. Bubukun says it's an irrational, unlawful use of a drug for enhancing sport performance. Yeah, it's about, enhancing sport performance, whether using medications or a particular substance or methods. All right. So that's what it's all about. So, and use of operative substance and method. All right. So as I said, it's not only just using substances. I will talk about, the various substances that are actually banned in sport and the various methods that are banned in sport. But when an athlete is involved in the use of prohibited substances and prohibited methods, we say that athlete, has committed an anti-doping rule violation. Okay, ADRV for short. Now, let's talk about some very historic cases uh, around doping. All right. So the first time in history where that doping was said to occur was this guy called Thomas Hicks, 1904, at the St. Louis Olympics in the US. I mean, at this time, there was really no formal doping regulation. So this guy was a marathon runner, and towards the end of the marathon, if you've seen people do marathon, they kind of get more tired towards the end, of the marathon. In fact, uh, what the research says is that people are more likely to have a sudden cardiac arrest or have emergency situations towards the end, of the marathon race. And as this guy was approaching the end of the race, some people just went to him, his support personnel, and they gave him strychnine and brandy. He was strychnine and brandy. Now, strychnine and brandy were stimulants, all right. Though later on, the FDA said strychnine is actually used as a pesticide, all right. But then it was seen as a stimulant, and they gave this guy strychnine and brandy, as a stimulant to give him more energy, to finish the race. All right. I mean, very, very hilarious, but that was the first recorded drug use uh, of a substance, all right, in modern Olympics. At this point, there was nothing like banned or not banned substance, okay, but this was the first time in which we saw somebody using a kind of medication to enhance their performance. All right. So now, what was the lesson we learned from that? Is that drug use in sport was deemed acceptable at that point. All right. So it was deemed acceptable because Tomok he received his gold medal. He received his gold medal. So nobody said, oh, you cheated. So there was really nothing like cheating at that point in time. So it was deemed acceptable, and drugs were crude. There were no pharmaceutical industry. And yes, even though those medications were potentially lethal or, fatal toxic, but we did not really have research. There were no pharmaceutical industry then to say, okay, this medication, is bad for you, etc. Is that very clear? So that was the lesson we learned from that. Now, early examples of drug use in sports, are things like caffeine, all right, that get caffeine from tea and coffee, strychnine, as I mentioned, cocaine from cocoa leaves, morphine, opium poppy, and alcohol. Now, what you observe is that early examples of drug use in sport was associated only with stimulants. All right. Now, every of these examples I gave here are they are all stimulants. All right. Stimulant in the sense that gets your heart rate up, gets blood pumping. It gets your heart to pump more blood into your muscles, thereby delivering more oxygen for your muscles, to, get that fuel for activities. Your brain is also active as well. All right. So they were all stimulants. So the first, early examples of drug use in sport were the use of stimulants. All right. So in the 1920s, all right, so we had amphetamine, all right. So one of the earliest drug produced synthetically was amphetamine. Now, the ones I showed earlier on were from natural sources, were stimulant from natural sources. Amphetamine, as we know, is used to treat nasal congestion, anxiety, and depression, all right. So in 1928, the International Athletic, Federation banned stimulant, all right. So there were restrictions, all right, on this of stimulant, even though at this point in time there was no testing, for the athletes. Okay, so restrictions were ineffective, all right, because yet they just said, okay, guys, athletes, don't take stimulants, don't take alcohol, don't take caffeine. So it was really just more like advisory, all right, advisory in the sense that they couldn't really test at that point in time, all right. I mean, obviously, if they couldn't test, it meant that people were definitely using amphetamine. Now, what are the key lessons we learned? All right. Whether drugs were being used for both therapeutic and non-therapeutic purposes, all right. Athletes began to scan the literature to identify potential performance enhancing substances. So aside from stimulants, at this point in time, the athlete began to look for, okay, aside from stimulants, what other medications, excuse me, can improve our performance. All right. Prohibiting substances used in sports must be supported by effective dope testing. So what we realized, or the lesson we learned here, is that it is not enough to say stimulants are bad. It's not enough to say, oh, don't take alcohol, don't take coffee, don't take strychnine, don't take brandy. We needed to have a way of testing, all right, for us to have at least an objective modality to say, okay, this person has committed an anti-doping violation or not. Now, in the 1950s, so suspected that testosterone was being used by some lifters. So weightlifters, I mean, were now, because if you look at weightlifters, there's always this muscle build. So there was a high suspect that, oh, these guys were probably using something, and people felt, okay, it was testosterone. All right. Because testosterone definitely, is a steroid, and would help you, build a muscle. All right. So anabolic steroid, uh, methandrostenol is synthesized, and steroids not banned as no effective test. Yes, even though it was suspected, all right, it was not banned because there were no effective tests. So if you could go back, you find out that it started from what stimulants. Then in the 1950s, we began to look at, issues, other banned substances like, steroids, all right? And I told you, so what were the lessons we learned here is that anabolic steroids were identified by athletes as potential. It was as a potent performance enhancing agent, all right? But again, just like stimulants, we did not have any effective testing, in the 1950s as well. Now, in 1967, now this guy, the cyclist Thomas Simpson died in the Tour de France, all right? And after he died, all right, they found, trace amounts of amphetamine, all right, in his system, and they also had samples in his jerseys. And aside from that, he was also cycling at, extenuating circumstances, all right, 40, so that is 40 degrees Celsius, not 400 degrees Celsius, all right? So imagine you using amphetamine, one, under very hot and, humid environmental conditions, and there were also fluid restrictions. So this guy was overworking his heart and eventually died. All right. So this was the first doping fatality. All right. And it was associated with the use of stimulant amphetamine. All right. Now, what are the lessons we learned here? That aside from the performing, enhancement of medications, they could also prove fatal. All right. So there was therefore a need for a list of prohibited substances in sport. All right. So in the 1970s and the 1980s, now the German Democratic Republic, now this was, then when they were under the communist administration. So they began to, give steroid, okay, androgens to women and missing girls. All right. So they wanted them to become built, like men, so that they could, outperform their other female athletes. All right. Scientists and physicians performed research into doping, all right, even at that time as well. So again, this was when the issue of systemic doping began to surface. All right. Systemic doping is when an organization or a country or an associations are deliberately, supporting their athletes to use banned substance. All right. And I think in recent times as well, or in the last decade, this country, Russia, has also been accused of systemic doping. All right. So state-controlled doping, all right, began to occur, and scientists began to collaborate in doping, and athletes are exposed to significant health risk arise from doping. So in 1968, this was the first time we had the first drug test at the Olympics. All right. At this particular Olympics, the only medication they could test for was the stimulants, all right, were the analgesics and the stimulants, all right. So they had the technology to test for the substances in 1967. Although it was suspected that steroids were being used, but there were no effective testing methods. Now, if you look at this, how this thing has been going, you find out that testing is a very, very important aspect of doping. So beyond educating people, because it is said that athletes know that they should not dope. Athletes understand, which substances are bad. All right. But why is it that athletes are still committing, still dope? Because sometimes athletes think that they'll never be caught. So technologies have improved over the years, okay, that we can now detect even a drop. Even if you use a tiny amount even if it is in nanograms or micrograms, there are technologies now to actually detect that somebody is in a banned substance. Now, let me give you this example or this scenario. It is said that if somebody, let's say, uh used anabolic steroid, which is a banned substance, all right, and you take the person's just a little amount of blood, okay, less than a mil, and you drop that 1 mil of blood, all right, into a pool, that if you test the pool, if I mean you drop just like a mil of blood, all right, okay, or okay, not a mil of blood, like maybe you test like 5 mils of blood, and you pour the 5 mils of blood into a swimming pool. There are technologies that can still detect steroids in that particular blood sample, despite the fact that it's been dissolved in that large volume of water. Now, that might be an exaggeration, but that is just to tell you that the technology are so much advanced. And that is why people are getting caught now much more than in the last, than, maybe 50 years or 100 years ago. All right. Now, the first Olympic doping violation, all right, so in 1968, so there was this guy, uh, and Guan Lingduel, all right, was stripped of his bronze medal, all right, because again, he tested positive for excessive alcohol. Remember, I said earlier on that there were now, technologies to test for stimulants, all right, so he was stripped of his bronze medal. And also in that same Olympics, all right, 14 other athletes, were tested positive for tranquilizers, which were not banned at that time anyways. But again, tranquilizers were also stimulants, all right. So it meant that we still had not so much understanding of all the prohibited substances. Now, in 1975, the International Olympic Committee added steroids to their banned substances, all right. Anabolic steroids were added, all right, because anabolic steroids added to the IOC's list of banned substances because a test that is constable to reliable was developed. So in 1975, steroids were added. All right. Even though steroids were suspected, all right, that it was being used as a banned substance, but it was in 1975 that it was officially added as a banned substance. And also, it also coincided with the year in which they also, developed a testing method, to detect steroids. And the first athlete that went under the hammer, for using steroids was this guy, Ben Johnson. I mean, if you are very familiar with athletics, okay? I mean, Ben Johnson, a Canadian, was like for the Usain Bolt of those days, but it was tested positive, for an anabolic steroid tanazole. All right. Subsequent events showed 6 of the 8 finalists used substances during their career. So remember that normally you have 8 people, all right, I mean, 8 lanes, and he was kind of, well, unfortunate. I mean, they actually caught him, all right. But later they found out that, another 6 of the finalists, also used, were also caught using a banned substance, all right, during their career as well. Okay, so it meant that, sorry, where am I? So it meant that use of steroids was was not just used by weightlifters alone. Sprinters began to use it. So again, what were the key lessons we learned? All right, in 1988, we found out that yes, there were more better technologies now in testing. Okay, we found out that anabolic steroids were being used in all power events, not just weightlifting. Remember that sprinting is a power event. It is a power event because it involves rapid contractions of your muscles. Okay, and at the highest level of competition, all right, in sports thought to be clean, brought doping to the attention of the general public. So it was at that time, it was at this 1988 Seoul Olympics in Korea that, yes, the public were now much more kind of aware that, oh, people were cheating through using banned substances. Now, again, in the 1998 was the Festina affair. Again, this was when, systemic doping was really brought, to the limelight. It was this cycling team called Festina. All right, and they discovered banned substances in their hotel. So systemic doping was being used, and something this cycling team used was erythropoietin, EPO. All right, so the extent of use of EPO and the need for validation test, people began to feel because aside from, sorry, where am I now? Sorry. Yeah. So aside from finding steroids, all right, so they found stimulants and they also found erythropoietin, amongst this Festina team. So then the IOC began to look at EPO as well. All right. So there was a need for not just the International Olympic Committee to be like the primary how will I put it now? The primary agency. So there was a need for every other national agency as well to also begin to champion the need for anti-doping. Okay. So in 2002, this was when we had the first case of what we call inadvertent doping. So what do we mean by inadvertent doping? Inadvertent doping is a case where you did not purposely dope. Did not purposely dope. All right. And this is an Baxter case, and the Baxter is a Scottish skier. His case is quite very unfortunate. So Vicks, I mean, most of us will probably have used the Vicks inhaler here, and we use it for nasal congestions. So now this guy's a Scottish guy, and he usually gets a particular Vicks inhaler in Scotland. But when he went to the Winter Olympics, Salt Lake in the US, he forgot his own Vicks inhaler. So he had to find a pharmacy around or a shop around to buy Vicks inhaler. Unknown to him, the Vicks inhaler that was sold in the US, all right, had left amphetamine. Remember, I said amphetamine had been on the banned substance list, for so long. And that was why this guy was stripped of his bronze medal. All right. Yes, though it was acknowledged that he did not attempt to cheat, but rejected appeal for medal reinstatement. So they did not, actually give him his medal back anyway. So this was the first case of what they called inadvertent doping. All right. I mean, there are other cases of inadvertent doping. So there was another guy, I can't remember his name now, that went to Mexico and he went to go and eat their meat in Mexico, all right? Not knowing that in Mexico, they preserve their meat and all of using steroids. Some farmers usually give the animals steroids in order for those animals to go bigger, have bigger muscles. And this was how this guy was found, to have, steroid in his blood. Another funny one was this particular tennis player. He's a French tennis player. Just a night before his tennis game, he went to the club, kissed the girl in the club, not knowing that the girl had cocaine, on her lips, and that was how cocaine slipped into his system, and he was caught, to be having, cocaine in his system just because he went to the nightclub before and he kissed a girl, all right, that had cocaine on her lips. All right, good. So now, in summary, performance enhancement in sport has been used for over 2,000 years, and we've seen some amazing landmark cases. We've seen cases of people not knowing that they use banned substances. We've seen cases of, the case of X that you used, any substance. We've seen it started from when there was no crime using any medication. It was not known as cheating, but we've seen over time how the issue of doping has developed over time, from stimulants to steroids, and now we have like a much more robust list of banned substances, which I'll be sharing in the second part, of this discussion. All right. So athletic support personnel, which involves, the athlete coaches, their parents, their doctors, even the government as well, they have a significant role to play, in combating sports doping. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. So I don't know if we've got any question. All right. And hope I've not bored you guys with so much history.
Well, I have thank you for the presentation, Chief. It
Yeah.
was really nice. Yeah, so I have I don't know, maybe it's still going to be the next the part two.
Yeah.
There's some, first of all, there's some supplements and there's some medications, like for some, besides for some page for some, let's say, football players now, because that's what I know about. Some medications that are like contraband, right? But the patients who need it, right? So
Mm,
what is the procedure, just like for medications, or now
okay.
doctors, like team doctors, go about
Okay.
to give the exception for them to be able to use those medications?
All right, I think that's a very good question. So I have it in my second part, but I will still, answer it because you've asked. So there's this concept we call therapeutic use exemption. All right, so therapeutic exemption, as the name implies, that you want to use a banned substance for therapeutic purposes. All right, so there's a form, the athlete support personnel, the doctor would need to fill, all right, to request for an exemption. And there are certain criteria that must be met. And one of the criteria must be met. In fact, there are 4 criteria that all of them must be met. It is not 2 out of the 4. And those criteria are quite very stringent. One of the criteria that must be met is that there must not be any alternative to that particular medication. So, for example, if let me give an example. For example, so let's say an athlete needs to use, maybe an athlete is asthmatic. Okay. And the athlete needs to use salbutamol, all right. A particular dose of salbutamol is banned in sports. And you as a doctor, you feel, okay, this athlete needs salbutamol, needs this dose of salbutamol because it's asthmatic. All right. Before you can be allowed to use that salbutamol dose, you must have asked yourself, are there any alternatives that can be used? So there's some salmeterol, so we have a long-acting one that could also be used. Then there are also other alternatives that can be used. So you need to, do your own findings to be sure that there are no other alternatives that can be used to manage that particular condition. I don't know if that answered your question, but in my second part, I will shed more light on that. Miracle, I
All
don't
right,
know
all right.
if I've answered the
Thank you.
question.
Yes, 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 yes. I actually know about I read about it when I did not necessarily, but I read about the therapeutic use exception. But I wanted like if a one hand like and it was just reading, so I did not really
Yeah,
get the full gist. So that's why. So since you said the
yeah,
next exemption, no problem, no problem.
yeah.
Thank you,
So
Chief.
in fact, there's another concept we call emergency use or retro retroactive therapeutic use exemption. So sometimes maybe you're already in a game already, you're already in a competition, and this particularly needs this particular medication, but this medication is banned. It is your duty of care to give that athlete that medication and now request for a therapeutic use exemption retroactively. Does that make sense? Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah,
All right. Thank you, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Don't know if there's any other question.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, yeah, Fermi, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you very much, sir. I want to ask, is this doping test, do they do it before events or like after events? Or do they
Mm,
just suspect you of being very active and they just and pick you for this testing after the event? I think I've seen in some cases that maybe like 2, 3 years after now, they then say that this athlete is being stripped of their medal for doping offenses.
mm. So, good question. So ideally, doping is a random thing, right? So usually at every event, there has to be a dope testing. So let me make it more practical. At every EPL game, for example, there is a dope testing at every EPL game. At every major competitions, you're going to have a testing. What are those that are tested is random. But you can bet that, for example, if Chelsea and I hope there are no Chelsea fans here. If Chelsea and Arsenal is playing, and Arsenal is leading Chelsea by 4 goals to nothing, and maybe the scorer of that 4 goals to nothing is Gabriel Jesus, don't you think they will test him after the game?
True.
Now, it will be tested. All right. Yeah, even though it's random, but it will be tested after the game. So testing is done after every game. All right. And players are picked random. That's one. Also, there's something we called whereabout testing. Okay. So because there's something we call out of competition testing. Now, what I've described, just now is the in competition testing. All right. So there's something we call out of competition testing because there are some substances that are banned whether you are in competition or not in competition. Therefore, if some substances are banned out of competition means that you're not actively doing the competition, you're not actively doing that sport. There's therefore a need for testing out of competition. So some athletes are tested out of competition. So let me tell you how it goes. So, and not all athletes are tested out of competition anyway. So there's something we call registered athletic pool. So there are some athletes, usually national athletes, all right, that are in this registered testing pool, all right, by the Nigerian Anti-Doping Agency, by the World Anti-Doping Agency. So for those athletes in that registered testing pool, you are required to give your whereabouts quarterly. So if for example, if you are in that registered testing pool, for example, there's a particular place on the World Anti-Doping website where you would have to say, okay, for this first 3 months, these are the likely places I'm going to be. Is that very clear? So you have to put it there. It's like when you are an elite athlete, your life is practically not your life anymore. So they can ring you up at any time. So like 24 hours, if they want to come and test you, let's say tomorrow, they'll ring you up today and say, please, we want to come and test you. Please tell us where you'll be at so point and the time we can meet you. Even if you're in Japan, because they have this, doping control officer everywhere. And you say, okay, I'll be at so point, then somebody will come and meet you. If you are not found there, you have committed, if you're not found there 3 consecutive times, or if you were not available 3 consecutive times for an out of competition testing, you have also committed an anti-doping violation. Fermi, have I answered your question?
Yes, sir, you have that.
Good. So, like for example, Blessing Okagbare, I don't know how many of you know her. How many of you know Blessing Okagbare?
Yeah, we know.
We
Yeah,
do,
so
we do.
yeah.
America, Nigerian 100 meter, 200 meter.
Yeah. I mean, one of the Nigerians of no, I mean, it was banned for 10 years. Yeah, it was banned for 10 years. One of the things that Blessing, I mean, one of the anti-doping violations she committed, aside from the fact that they found, HCG, human gonado, I mean, aside from the fact that they found the growth hormone in a blood sample, she also committed a whereabout testing failure. All right. So, I mean, it's a very, very serious thing. It's a very, very serious thing when it comes to doping. All right. Very serious thing when it comes to doping. Any other question?
Okay, sir, I want to ask, is it that it's not just about the unlawful use of drug? If the person does not show up or if they are unable to test the person 3 consecutive times, the person has also violated the doping law as well. Is that
Yes.
what you're trying to say, sir?
Yes. Because it is not just about using a banned medication. Also, there's also what we call prohibited methods. So it means that if you are not found, if you miss 3 consecutive testings, you've also committed doping. I don't know if that makes sense, Ademola. You've also committed doping. In fact, this lady, what's her name? This Nigerian lady that does 100, 110 meter hurdles. What's her name now?
Toby.
Yeah. Toby. Musa. Do you know at some point she had this ban for whereabout testing, but she contested it and they found out that okay, maybe she did not actually miss it. Yeah.
I was away.
Yeah. So it is a very, very it's quite very strict. In fact, there's a law that's called laws of strict liability. So law of strict liability says that as an athlete, you are responsible for whatever is found in your blood. So there's no, I did not know. Let me give another example. Andre Onana, when he was playing for Ajax, I mean, I'm apology for those that are not football fans here. So Andre Onana is presently the Manchester United goalkeeper, but he used to play for Ajax. And do you know he was banned in sport? I think for like 2 years. Guess what happened? He mistakenly went to go and take his wife's medication, which was the diuretics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I know it was banned. I know it was
yeah. It
banned,
was banned
but I
because
didn't know the details. Yeah.
yeah. So diuretics. So diuretics is banned in sports. So in our next session, I'll tell you why diuretics is banned in sports. So things like furosemide is banned in sport. It's banned in sport. So it is, and yes, because it was inadvertent use of diuretics, it was given like 2 years. So usually when you have usually if it is by mistake, and if you can prove that it was by mistake. So it's not just it was by mistake. There are certain things you need to prove. I mean, that is where the lawyers come in. I'm not a lawyer. But if you can sufficiently prove that this was a mistake, then they're going to reduce the doping ban. I mean, some can get a year, some can get 2 years. I think Maurice Coleman as well, this American sprinter as well. I think Ease was aware about testing. So it's quite very, 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 very serious thing, particularly in athletics. And recently in football now, football is beginning to take it quite very serious. A good example is Paul Pogba. I don't know if you guys know that Pogba is not playing football now because he was caught doping.
Yeah, it got 4 years. Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. So and that is what you normally get if it's certified that you were actually doping.
But Chief, when a player like Pogba, like the one that has proper sport nutritionist and stuff, you should be aware of all this kind of stuff. Like, how did he get himself involved in that kind of stuff? Or was it like an accidental stuff? I don't know. How it is.
See, we really can't say. In fact, some people always say that you should. I mean, some people believe that all athletes dope. That those that are caught are those that were probably amateur dopers. Yes. I'll start again. I don't know if you know this guy that used to be a Formula One race. Is it Louis Armstrong or something? What's his name? Something Armstrong. That guy was never caught. It was when he retired I said he was doping, despite so many testing. So for Pogba, yeah. I mean, people are smart as well. So who like for Pogba, could it be a case of inadvertent doping? But not likely, because if it was and it could have and it proved it, then it will have gotten like a 2-year ban. All right, it will have gotten like a 2-year ban. Or could it be that it was done purposely? Understand? I think his was a steal or something. I'm not sure that they used. Yeah, miracle.
No, go on, sir.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, we really can't say. We really can't say whether it was done purposely or not, or it was not. But if he had 4 years, it means the jury probably thought, or based on the evidence, he probably thought that it was done, on purpose. I mean, yeah. So again, that's the thing, and yeah, I mean, there are quite some cases of doping in football, just that we don't really hear a lot of them. I know there's a Nigerian footballer in Italy that was caught doping at some point as well. Yeah, that was kind of well, and in the Nigerian Premier League, I know they've started doing dope testing, but I don't know whether they do it every game. I don't know how to do it every game. You understand? Because
Nigeria, I don't trust Nigeria.
well,
for some ways, I don't just trust it. They can find a way around it.
again, see, since we don't have a lot of data in Nigeria, so we don't even know the extent to which people dope. We don't know the extent. But again, from anecdotal experiences, from what you hear people say, it does appear that people use various things. I mean, I've seen people say things like, after halftime, people take marijuana. Yeah, I
In
mean,
Nigerian Premier League.
I don't know in Nigerian football. I've heard that after halftime, like when and they
They
just
use
go
Igbo,
and
they go
take,
use bike to play.
yeah, Igbo marijuana, and they come out there, like, you feel that yes, the coach have psyched them up. You think he's one psyching up, but